So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Should you buy iPhone 12 now? So you might be saying, Nick, you covered this phone. Yeah, but I'm talking about right now. Like right now, there's a month or so away to go. We're going to have a 13, but the 12 is not slowing down its sales. People love the colors. They love the design. It's going back to the old squared edges. You got the OLED on board. We're not going to cover all the specs here. I have a review for that. I'll leave that linked down below. But I got to say, is this phone worth it here? I'm going to tell you my experience throughout this video, and you're going to find out for yourself. Now, when it comes to the body of this phone, the main thing that I have to say about this device is the way it kind of feels in the hand is pretty light comparatively to the phones that came before this in the iPhone 11 and the 10R. So it's striking how much lighter this is, 164 grams. And not only that, the bezels right here, they got nice and thin by comparison. So overall, the comfort factor was huge for me here. The balance of this and comfort was nice. So if you're trying to buy a phone right now, you don't want to wait until the 13. This is a very comfortable size. Got a 6.1 inch screen, so it's a pretty sizable display as well, even though it's not the largest screen you can get on an iPhone. Is definitely enjoyable. I will say the body with this aluminum edges, they don't get quite as smudgy and scratched up as stainless steel, so it looks pretty clean right there around the corners. And then on the back, you do have this glass feel, which definitely gets more smudgy than the etch matte kind of feel on the 12 Pro series. I'd say overall they knocked it out of the park with design, and when they go to the iPhone 13, it's not going to be a major rehaul. So this phone right here is still okay if you want to pick it up in terms of the looks. It's not going to be out of date just because the 13 comes out. IP68 kept this thing nice and dust and water resistant. Now, moving on to the display, this was one of my favorite upgrades about the iPhone 12, and the main reason was because it went to the OLED panel, XDR OLED here, Super Retina, HDR10, Dolby Vision, 1200 nits outside, meaning it's pretty easy to see. No 3D touch, so if you're coming from iPhone XS, iPhone 10, those phones before that, you'll definitely notice a little bit slower when you punch in, but it's not a big deal. One thing that's really noticeable about this, that you might be coming from an older phone, if you didn't have OLED before, you're going to get this much more colorful, saturated feel when it comes to consuming media and content, and it's very enjoyable. Overall, it's a very noticeable thing, and because those bezels got much thinner right here, it also feels like you're holding more screen in the hand. So the iPhone, in terms of display, the iPhone 12, very strong to say the least here, and you know, that's kind of an understatement. It's actually one of the best on the market. But you do have, you know, a notch right here that might shrink with the iPhone 13. We don't know 100% until that gets announced. Talking about the software, this launched with iOS 14. Now I'm still running the 14. I'm running the betas on some other iPhones. Right here I'm still running the 14. I gotta say, it's been slick, it's been smooth. Like, there hasn't been many bugs or delays. It's been a pretty enjoyable software experience on here. So yeah, if you're looking for this in software, you got many years left. We don't got to talk much more about that. But performance, this chipset in here is so powerful, you don't even really take advantage of it. The 5 nanometer chipset in here is a boss, and it's definitely noticeable how snappy this is comparatively to like an iPhone 10R, iPhone 11. This is just a little bit quicker than those phones. It's super quick. So that's something I really liked about this phone. If you wanted to buy it now, performance is strong. Now, when I'm talking about the memory, you start out at 64. So that's kind of a setback. I wish Apple would started the iPhone 12 at 128, but for a little bit more money, you can get the 128, and it does have 4 gigs of RAM. So there is the potential of a reload because this does house 4 gigabytes of RAM. You're not going to see it here on a camera, but if you are opening 1,000 apps at once, you could potentially definitely see a reload on this device. It's just something that can happen because this phone doesn't have the 6 gigs of RAM you see on the iPhone 12 Pro. But it's not really going to bother most people because most of the time you're doing one app at a time. You're not gonna have anything that's serious about this. This phone is fast enough for pretty much anybody, even professionals, I would say. Now, talking about the camera, I think this is one of the main reasons why the 12 Pro doesn't get much love, and that's because the cameras for the iPhone 12 are just so good. They're so similar that people don't think the iPhone 12 Pro, not everybody thinks it's worth it. And I'm not talking about the Max, I'm talking about the regular 12 Pro that doesn't seem to get a lot of love like this phone does. And it's because the cameras on here, they're just so good. Like, do you really need the iPhone 12 Pro when you have essentially the same system here with a few differences? Yes, in the photo, you can't, zoom as far. You don't even have the telephoto zoom, but I don't think that's something everybody wants or cares about. And when you have basically 90% of the same camera here, and then you even have a great front facing camera with the 12 megapixel 4K at 60 on the front, the iPhone 12 is an absolute monster in the camera. Anybody could get by with this phone and be very, very happy and feel like they have something pretty pro in their pocket. So the camera, they knocked it out of the park with this one. It's no wonder why the iPhone 12 is selling so amazingly well. The camera system is extra strong on this device. Let's talk about the audio.
Should you buy
Also very nice and strong.
iPhone 12 Pro Max now?
One thing I like about the iPhone's audio though, especially this 12 series, this one and the other 12s, is that not only does it get really loud, but it's so clear and crispy. Like at the high end volume of this phone, it still sounds very clear. Like sometimes on other phones, it'll sound kind of scratchy, a little bit tinny at the very loudest point.
July 2021, we're only a few months away from the introduction of the 13 series, as we would expect every year.
So I brought the mic a little closer. You could just hear definitely that this phone has good audio, so that's very nice as well. Now, when talking about the battery life of the iPhone 12, this is just something that has been pretty average to me. I don't think this thing overly impressed. Now, keep in mind that it does get through a day quite easily just because of how well optimized iOS is for this phone. But 2815 is not a large battery. It's a 2815 in here. You know, that's almost 3,000, but you know, Samsung devices have 4,000, 4,500 milliamp hour cells. This only has a 2815, and some people may think that the iPhone is getting through a longer day just because, you know, it stays at 100 a little bit longer. But I found this phone is not the best I've seen Apple do. Hopefully they improve this with the iPhone 13. So overall, you know, should you buy it now? Battery life, it depends. If you want a better battery life, I probably would wait to see what the 13 brings. If I'm being totally honest with you, I probably would wait to see what the 13 brings if you want better battery life. The Face ID on this phone, and when this phone came out, you know, we were in the heights of the pandemic, so it was kind of annoying using Face ID. They did bring the Apple Watch update where if you have your Apple Watch on, it can kind of unlock. You know, I didn't really like that feature as much, so I want to see Touch ID integrated into this button right here. They did it on the iPad Air. I don't know why they can't do it here, or at least put it on the screen somewhere right here or something, maybe at the bottom, where we can go ahead and just unlock the phone with a tap in display. I feel like they could have Face ID and that. Like, it's not a big deal. Just invest in the technology and get that fingerprint in the display, or use what you already know and put that fingerprint right there on the button. It's pretty simple technology that can be really helpful when we are wearing a mask. So when it comes to phone call quality, this is an area I have to say they've upgraded this phone so much, man. Like, it's so much better with the signal strength and the 5G performance versus the iPhone 11 and the 10R, mostly because those had Intel modems and Qualcomm is back on the iPhone series. It's great. It really is great for the iPhone 12, and it's something that makes me giddy because, you know, I would use my iPhone 11 and I would be dropping down to like 2-1 bars, and I'm like using my Samsung phones on my iPhone, you know, 11, I was dropping out of that, but I go on my Samsung phones and I'm getting 4 or 5 bars, and I'm like getting great internet speed. I'm like, what's going on here? And I realized it's the Intel modem. So having these Qualcomms back on the iPhone 12 has been great. It really has. It's just something you don't think about, but it definitely does make a difference. And so that's about it. Should you buy this phone now? You can see the display is strong. The cameras are very good. Battery life is pretty average, I would say. And the design, I think, is really good. It's really nice, but the notch needs to get a little bit smaller. I think if you really care about maybe seeing a slightly tweaked design, wait for the 13. If you want a little bit better battery life, wait for the 13. And of course, every year they'll slightly improve the cameras. I'm not sure they're going to do a major upgrade on the cameras. You might want to wait for the 13. But if you need a phone now, and you don't want to wait another month or two, and you found this on a deal, or your carrier is doing some subsidy plan where you're going to get a major discount, this phone is really worth it. It still is worth it. And it's not like the iPhone 12 is just going to drop off the planet of the earth when the iPhone 13 comes out. I still think this is a good purchase right now, depending on the person. Of course, the techies that really follow the industry, they want to be on the latest and greatest, or people who just love tech and they want the latest, greatest, it's a horrible time to buy right now. But for those other people, I'd say go for it. They're doing many more deals right now. They got black, white, red, green, blue, purple. There's tons of color options, and it's still performing like an absolute monster. Thumbs up if you found this video helpful, entertaining, informing. And I have more iPhone 12 content, many more videos where I went more in detail on the specs, more kind of detail on some other things. So I will leave those linked down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here. Be sure to be well. I will catch you all in the next episode. Thank you for watching, and peace.